You've walked past it 100 times. That weedy patch near the sidewalk, the scrubby growth along the fence line, those wild flowers in the abandoned lot down the street. Worthless, right? Wrong. Some of the most powerful healing plants on Earth are hiding in plain sight, dismissed as weeds while we rush to the pharmacy for problems they could solve in minutes. Our ancestors knew their secrets. Soldiers carried them into battle. Families survived centuries without hospitals because of them. Today, we're rediscovering what got forgotten. 20 plants. Some stop bleeding instantly. Others fight bacteria that antibiotics can't touch anymore. One contains the compound aspirin was copied from, except it works better. Stick with us because number 18 has been a secret for years, but this wild plant's ability is life-changing. These aren't folk tales or wishful thinking. We're talking clinical trials, peer-reviewed research, documented results. The kind of evidence that makes modern medicine quietly admit that maybe, just maybe, nature knew what it was doing all along. Here's what nobody tells you. Pharmaceutical companies can't patent a dandelion. They can't own calendula or monopolize yarrow. So these plants disappeared from medicine cabinets even though they never stopped working. They're still out there, still potent, still healing. You just forgot to look. Let's start with calendula, the bright orange flower that kept medieval soldiers alive. When you're bleeding on a battlefield with no surgeon, no antibiotics, no sterile supplies, you need something that actually works. Calendula worked. They called it the war flower for good reason. Modern clinical trials prove what warriors knew. The petals contain triterpenoids and flavonoids with genuine anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. Studies show calendula extract speeds, healing of burns, surgical wounds, and everyday cuts significantly faster than leaving them alone. You can infuse dried flowers in oil, add some beeswax, and you've got wound care that rivals anything at the drugstore. The plant grows easily in gardens, producing flowers from spring through frost. It's waiting there, this backyard emergency room, ready the moment you remember it exists. Now consider comfrey. The name alone tells you everything. Knit bone. For centuries, people applied comfrey root and leaves to broken bones, sprains, torn tissue. They swore healing happened faster. Turns out they were absolutely correct. The plant contains allantoin, a compound that promotes cell proliferation. Your cells literally multiply and repair tissue faster. Multiple clinical trials confirm that topical comfrey extract reduces pain and improves function in ankle sprains, back pain, and osteoarthritis. Real studies. Published research. Here's the crucial part though. External use only. Comfrey contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids that damage your liver internally. But as a salve on skin over injuries, it's remarkably safe and effective. Modern medicine dismissed it partly due to internal use concerns, partly because broken bones need casts and x-rays, not herbs. But for constant soft tissue injuries, the sprained ankles and strained backs and bruised muscles, comfrey remains one of nature's fastest healers. Plantain weed grows everywhere, not the banana-like fruit, the low-growing weed with oval leaves that you've stepped over 1,000 times. Native Americans called it white man's footprint because it seemed to follow European settlers everywhere. They also learned it could treat cuts, burns, insect bites, and infections better than almost anything else readily available. Modern research backs this completely. Studies confirm genuine wound healing, anti-inflammatory, and antimicrobial effects. An Iranian clinical trial found plantain ointment improved second-degree burn healing better than standard treatment. Traditional use was simple. Take a fresh leaf, crush it, apply directly to a cut, sting, or bite. Within minutes, pain and swelling decrease. You can make strong tea from dried leaves to wash wounds. The plant got forgotten because it's common. We've been conditioned to believe medicine should be rare and expensive, not growing in sidewalk cracks. For minor injuries and insect stings, though, plantain delivers immediate, free, incredibly effective relief. Yarrow takes this further. The plant contains compounds that genuinely shorten bleeding time and promote clotting. Studies document hemostatic effects, meaning it stops bleeding, plus anti-inflammatory and wound healing properties. Soldiers throughout history carried dried yarrow to pack into wounds. It worked. The plant grows wild across North America and Europe, producing clusters of tiny white or pink flowers on tall stems. You can make tea for internal use to reduce fever and inflammation, or apply crushed fresh leaves directly to cuts to stop bleeding and prevent infection. What makes yarrow special is that it's both hemostatic and vulnerary. Most plants do one or the other. Yarrow does both. It disappeared from use because we developed synthetic clotting agents and antiseptics. But for anyone hiking, camping, or working outdoors, knowing yarrow grows nearby and can stop a bleeding cut in minutes is genuinely valuable knowledge. Then there's self-heal. The name itself tells you how much our ancestors trusted this plant. Prunella vulgaris was used for virtually any wound, sore throat, mouth ulcer, or inflamed tissue. People trusted it enough to call it heal-all. Modern research validates that confidence. Reviews show genuine wound healing properties, anti-inflammatory effects, and the ability to disrupt bacterial biofilms. Those protective layers bacteria create that make infections harder to treat. The plant grows low to the ground in lawns and meadows, producing purple flower spikes. You can make strong tea for mouth rinses or apply crushed leaves to minor cuts. What's fascinating is how well self-heal works on mucous membranes, mouth ulcers, sore throats, inflamed tissue in places where applying medicine is tricky. A simple tea used as a gargle brings relief within hours. We're just getting started. These first 5 plants represent something important. They're not rare, they're not exotic, they grow in ditches and lawns and abandoned lots. That's precisely why they got forgotten. But effectiveness has nothing to do with rarity. These plants work because chemistry doesn't care about marketing or profit margins. What comes next gets more powerful. We're moving from basic first aid into plants that handle serious respiratory problems, chronic pain, and infections that resist conventional treatment. Agrimony handles throat problems differently than you'd expect. This medieval favorite works through astringency. The plant contains tannins that actually tighten inflamed tissue. When you gargle with agrimony tea, those tannins tone the mucous membranes in your throat, reducing swelling and irritation. Traditional herbalists made strong tea from dried aerial parts and used it several times daily for sore throats and mouth inflammation. The same tea worked internally for mild diarrhea because those astringent properties help tone the gut lining too. Agrimonia eupatoria produces tall spikes of tiny yellow flowers in summer, grows wild in meadows and woodland edges. The whole above-ground plant gets harvested and dried. The taste is mild, slightly bitter, actually quite pleasant compared to most medicinal teas. Modern medicine abandoned it for aggressive throat treatments, and people stopped making herbal gargles. But for mild sore throats, especially the kind that come with post-nasal drip, agrimony remains gentle and effective. White horehound takes us back even further. Before cough drops existed, there was horehound candy. Marubium vulgar was so effective that people literally turned it into candy and sold it in every pharmacy through the early 1900s. This is a classic expectorant. Helps you cough up mucus and clear congestion. The plant contains marubin, a compound that stimulates bronchial secretions and breaks up congestion. Herbal monographs still list it for productive coughs and bronchitis. Some European cough syrups use it today. The plant grows as a bushy perennial with fuzzy gray-green leaves and small white flowers. Traditionally, people made strong tea sweetened with honey or boiled it down with sugar into actual candy. Here's the difference between horehound and modern cough suppressants. It doesn't stop your cough, it makes your cough more productive. You actually clear the infection from your lungs instead of just suppressing symptoms. That's healing, not symptom management. Synthetic cough medicines took over despite their side effects and questionable healing properties. Horehound still grows in herb gardens everywhere, still turning stubborn coughs into productive clearing. Boneset brings us to something genuinely powerful. Eupatorium perfoliatum was famous as a flu remedy in the 1800s. Practically every household kept dried boneset for inevitable fevers and body aches. The name comes from breakbone fever, those deep muscle aches that accompany flu. This plant seemed to cure them. During great influenza epidemics of the 19th century, boneset was essential medicine. People made hot tea from dried leaves and flowers at the first flu sign. Fever, chills, deep aching, exhaustion. Ethnobotanical sources describe it as a febrifuge and immune stimulant. Clinical trials remain limited, but traditional use is extensively documented. The plant grows in wet meadows and along streams, producing flat white flower clusters in late summer. The tea is intensely bitter, one of the most bitter medicinal teas according to many sources. That bitterness was considered part of its effectiveness. Traditional protocol was simple. First flu symptoms appear. Drink hot boneset tea. Get into bed, sweat it out. The plant seems to help your body mount an effective fever response and immune reaction. Many swore it stopped flu in its tracks if caught early. Vaccines and antivirals replaced it. But for general flu-like illnesses that still hit us regularly, boneset remains a powerful traditional remedy. Just know the tea is incredibly bitter, and you're taking it while already miserable. Blue vervain shifts focus to the nervous system. This was considered a nervine, a plant that calms and strengthens nerves. Verbena hastata was used for nervous exhaustion, anxiety, tension, headaches, insomnia. All the stress problems we deal with constantly today. Traditional herbalists described it for people wound too tight, overthinking, tense, unable to relax or sleep. Modern herbal sources and some animal research suggest genuine anxiolytic effects. It calms nervous tension without sedating you. The plant grows wild in wet meadows and ditches, producing tall spikes of tiny purple-blue flowers. The whole aerial part gets harvested and dried for tea. Quite bitter, so often combined with pleasant herbs or sweetened with honey. Traditional use involved evening tea to wind down from stress, seize and prepare for sleep, or daytime doses for nervous tension. It doesn't knock you out like sleeping pills, just helps your nervous system relax and reset. Pharmaceutical anxiety medications and sleep aids replaced it, despite their dependence issues and side effects. Vervain offers gentler support for mild to moderate stress. Not strong enough for severe anxiety, but perfect for everyday tension that accumulates. Elecampane represents where herbal medicine gets serious about respiratory healing. Inula helenium was what herbalists reached for with deep, stubborn lung infections. That wet, productive cough that won't quit. Chronic bronchitis or lingering chest congestion after pneumonia. The root contains sesquiterpene lactones with antitussive and antimicrobial effects. Reviews describe it for chronic cough, asthma, lung disease. Recent research confirms antimicrobial activity against respiratory pathogens. This tall perennial has huge leaves and sunflower-like yellow flowers. Thick roots get harvested in fall, dried, used in long simmered decoctions or tinctures. The taste is complex, slightly bitter, warming, aromatic. Traditional approach required patience. For deep lung problems, you take small, frequent doses over weeks or months. Not a quick fix. A deep lung tonic that helps your respiratory system actually heal and strengthen. Herbalists often combined it with surit. Teach us other lung herbs for stubborn infections. It disappeared partly because it requires patience, working slowly and deeply rather than giving instant relief. Antibiotics seemed faster, but for chronic lingering respiratory weakness, elecampane offers something antibiotics don't. Genuine healing and strengthening of lung tissue itself. Doesn't just fight infection, rebuilds the entire battlefield. That brings us past the halfway point, and what comes next includes plants that numb pain instantly, fight antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and literally form the basis for modern aspirin. toothache plant delivers on its promise in spectacular fashion. Spilanthes ecmella contains spilanthol, creating instant tingling numbness in your mouth. Chew a fresh flower or leaf, and within seconds, your whole mouth goes numb. Traditional healers used it for exactly what you'd expect: toothaches, mouth ulcers, sore throats, any painful oral condition. Reviews confirmed genuine local anesthetic and analgesic effects. Still used in some traditional medicine systems for oral pain. The plant grows as a small annual with yellow and red cone-shaped flowers that look like tiny spaceships. Flowers have the strongest numbing effect, but leaves work too. Grows easily in warm climates or containers. At first sign of tooth pain or mouth ulcer, chew a fresh flower or leaf and let it coat the painful area. The numbing effect is immediate and lasts 30 minutes or more. Doesn't cure the underlying problem, but provides genuine pain relief while you address the cause. Got forgotten in the West simply because commercial numbing gels became available. But for natural pain management or mouth pain when nothing else is available, this plant is remarkable. The effect is so strong and immediate that first-time users are always shocked. Oregon grape isn't actually a grape. It's a spiky-leafed evergreen shrub with yellow flowers and blue berries. Mahonia aquifolium has something genuinely special. It's one of few herbs with solid clinical evidence for treating chronic skin conditions like psoriasis. Multiple studies show that topical Oregon grape extract significantly improves psoriasis and atopic dermatitis symptoms. Contains berberine and other alkaloids with antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory effects on skin. Traditional use included topical application for skin problems and internal use for digestive issues. The bright yellow inner bark of roots and stems is the medicinal part. You can make salve or cream from it, or find commercial Oregon grape products specifically formulated for psoriasis. The effect isn't instant, requires consistent use for weeks, but improvement can be significant. Psoriasis and eczema are chronic, frustrating conditions that don't respond well to most treatments. Oregon grape offers a botanical option with actual clinical backing. Not just traditional use, but modern studies showing real improvement. Got forgotten simply because it grows in the Pacific Northwest and wasn't widely available elsewhere until recently. For anyone dealing with chronic scaly inflamed skin conditions, it's worth seeking out. Yellow dock represents those alternative herbs. Old-fashioned herbalists called them blood purifiers, but they really meant herbs that help your body process and eliminate waste more efficiently. Rumex crispus root has been used for centuries for sluggish digestion, constipation, and skin problems connected to poor elimination. The root is rich in bitter compounds and anthraquinones that stimulate bile production and digestive function. Modern herbal reviews link yellow dock with supporting liver function, improving digestion, and helping chronic skin issues that respond to better internal cleansing. Evidence is mostly traditional and preclinical, but consistent. Grows as a tall weed with deep taproot and reddish seed heads. Root is harvested in fall, dried, used in small amounts in tea or tincture. Quite bitter and astringent, which is part of what makes it effective. That bitterness triggers digestive responses. Traditional approach involves small, regular doses to improve digestion, relieve constipation, support liver detoxification work. Over time, many found stubborn skin problems cleared up as digestion improved. Skin often reflects internal health. Got forgotten as laxatives and liver medications became standard, but those often force the body to respond rather than supporting natural function. Yellow dock works more gently, helping your body do what it's supposed to do. Usnea isn't technically a plant. It's a lichen growing hanging from trees like pale green hair, why it's called old man's beard. But this humble lichen has remarkable medicinal properties, making it one of the most important wilderness first aid remedies. Contains eusesnic acid and related compounds with strong antimicrobial activity. Recent reviews show effectiveness against bacteria, including some antibiotic-resistant strains. Traditional use was primarily topical. crushing fresh Usania and applying it to wounds and infections, or making a tincture for antiseptic wash. Found hanging from trees in relatively unpolluted areas, especially Pacific Northwest and mountain regions. Slow growing and should be harvested sustainably. Take only what's already fallen or clip small amounts from healthy trees. Prepared as tincture, alcohol extract for best medicinal effect. Traditional wilderness use involves moistening fresh Usnea and applying directly to wounds as antimicrobial dressing if you cut yourself hiking with no first aid supplies. Modern research confirms this genuinely fights infection. Got forgotten simply because it's a lichen, not a plant, and doesn't grow everywhere. For anyone spending time outdoors or wanting natural topical antimicrobial, Usnea is fascinating. Now we reach number 17, the one teased at the beginning. The plant used for over 2,000 years that modern science finally proved works against antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Barberry. Berberis vulgaris contains an alkaloid called berberine that's one of the most studied plant compounds in modern medicine. Berberine has documented antimicrobial effects against bacteria, fungi, parasites, anti-inflammatory effects, supports digestive health, and helps with diarrhea, especially infectious diarrhea. Recent research even shows metabolic benefits, improved blood sugar control and cholesterol levels. Traditional use goes back millennia, with barberry appearing in ancient Persian, Ayurvedic, Chinese medicine. The bright yellow inner bark of barberry roots and stems contains highest concentration of berberine. Can be prepared as tea, tincture, or concentrated extract. Intensely bitter, which is part of what makes it effective for digestion. What makes barberry special is it's one of those rare plants where traditional use and modern science align perfectly. Ancient healers used it for digestive infections, liver problems, inflammatory conditions. Modern research confirms antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, liver protective, and metabolic effects. The evidence is there. Got forgotten in the West partly because the shrub is thorny and aggressive, partly because synthetic antibiotics seemed more reliable. But with antibiotic resistance becoming a serious problem, berberine-containing plants like barberry are getting a second look. The ancient medicine becoming cutting edge again because we're finally running out of alternatives. Red clover is so common most people think of it as just another lawn weed. But Trifolium praetens has been used medically for centuries, particularly for skin conditions, inflammation, and women's health issues. Recent studies have validated several traditional uses. Red clover contains isoflavones, plant compounds that have mild estrogenic effects. Research shows benefits for menopausal hot flashes, and traditional use includes topical application for skin healing and internal use for chronic skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis. The flowers also have anti-inflammatory properties. You can harvest the flower heads from clean areas, not treated with chemicals, dry them, and make tea. The taste is mild and slightly sweet. Some people also make infused oils for topical use on skin problems. Traditional approach involved using red clover long-term for chronic conditions, weeks or months of regular tea for skin problems or menopausal symptoms. Not a quick fix, but gentle, nourishing medicine that supports healing over time. Got forgotten simply because it's everywhere and common. We've been trained to think real medicine should be rare and exotic, not growing in every meadow. For mild menopausal symptoms and chronic skin inflammation, red clover offers a safe, gentle, time-tested approach. Number 19, sassafras has a complicated history. Native Americans used sassafras root and bark for fevers, rheumatism, and digestive problems, and it was later used commercially to flavor root beer. The roots have a distinctive spicy aroma and were considered valuable medicine for hundreds of years. Traditional uses included fever reduction, treating rheumatic pain and inflammation, and digestive complaints. The plant contains aromatic oils that have warming, stimulating effects. However, and this is important, sassafras contains safrole, a compound shown to have potential liver toxicity and carcinogenic effects in large amounts. Because of this, internal use is now restricted in many places. Sassafras is mostly historical at this point. Interesting to know about and understand in context, but not recommended for regular internal use given safety concerns. The traditional uses were real, and the plant was genuinely valued. But we now know enough about the chemistry to be cautious. This is a good example of how traditional medicine and modern science can work together. Traditional use tells us what to investigate, and modern research tells us how to use it safely or when to find alternatives. Sassafras is part of medicinal plant history, but it's a reminder that natural doesn't always mean safe for regular use. And now, number 20, meadowsweet, the plant that aspirin was based on. Filipendula ulmaria is what people used for pain, fever, inflammation, and interestingly, stomach irritation before synthetic aspirin existed. Meadowsweet contains salicylates, the same compounds that aspirin is based on. When chemists first synthesized aspirin, they derived it from salicylic acid found in plants like meadowsweet and willowbark. But here's the fascinating part. Meadowsweet doesn't cause the stomach irritation that aspirin often does. In fact, traditional herbalists used it to soothe stomach inflammation while relieving pain and fever. The flowers and leaves are harvested and dried for tea. The taste is pleasant, slightly sweet with an almond-like aroma. Studies confirm anti-inflammatory effects from the salicylates and other compounds. Traditional use included tea for headaches, arthritis pain, fever, and digestive discomfort. Meadowsweet grows in wet meadows and along streams, producing creamy white clusters of fragrant flowers in summer. It's been used in Europe for centuries and was one of the most important pain-relieving herbs before modern pharmaceuticals. What makes this plant remarkable is how it shows what happens when we isolate single compounds from whole plants. We took nature's medicine, extracted one component, synthesized it, and somehow ended up with something less balanced and more problematic than the original. The whole plant offers pain relief without the stomach damage that isolated aspirin causes. That's what makes plant medicine different. Nature's formulations often include protective compounds alongside the active ingredients. Meadowsweet got forgotten because aspirin became cheap, standardized, and available everywhere. But for people who can't tolerate aspirin's stomach effects, or who want a more balanced approach to pain and inflammation, meadowsweet is still growing in ditches and meadows, still relieving pain, still doing what it's done for thousands of years. These 20 plants represent just a fraction of the medicinal knowledge that's been lost or forgotten over the past century. Every single one of them has a history of human use spanning decades, centuries, sometimes millennia. Every single one has been validated to some degree by modern research. Yet most people have never heard of them or wouldn't recognize them if they walked past them on a trail. That's the tragedy of modern medicine's tunnel vision. We've gained incredible technology, life-saving pharmaceuticals, surgical techniques our ancestors couldn't imagine. But we've also lost something valuable: the knowledge that healing can be simple, accessible, growing in the places we already inhabit. These plants aren't exotic rarities requiring special conditions. They're weeds in vacant lots, common flowers in meadows, shrubs along woodland edges. They've been waiting this entire time for someone to remember they exist and what they can do. The next time you see plantain growing in a sidewalk crack or yarrow blooming along a roadside, you'll know you're looking at medicine. Real medicine with thousands of years of use and modern science backing it up. That changes everything about how you see the world around you. The knowledge isn't gone, it never left. These plants are still growing, still working, still waiting. What left was our attention, our willingness to look down instead of rushing past. We traded relationships with the land for convenience, traded observation for consumption, traded knowledge passed down through generations for whatever the pharmacy shelf offers today. But here's what matters now. You've seen what calendula does to wounds, what yarrow does to bleeding, what meadowsweet offers without the side effects. You understand that the lichen hanging from that tree fights infections antibiotics can't touch anymore, that the weed in your lawn numbs pain instantly, that the bright flowers everyone ignores could treat chronic skin conditions modern medicine struggles with. This isn't about rejecting modern healthcare, it's about remembering we have options, about understanding that effective doesn't always mean expensive or synthetic or patented. Sometimes effective means a plant your grandmother knew by heart, growing in soil that's been there longer than any pharmacy. Start noticing them. Learn what grows near you, not all at once, just one at a time. Recognize plantain on your next walk. Spot yarrow along the roadside. Notice where self-heal grows in your yard. That simple awareness changes your relationship with the world around you. You stop seeing weeds and start seeing a living pharmacy that's been operating successfully for millennia without insurance companies or prescription pads. These 20 plants are your starting point, not your ending. They're proof that healing knowledge worth preserving is still accessible if you're willing to look. The rest is up to you.